Welcome everybody, and today we're taking a look at another Eureka Classics release from Eureka Entertainment, and it is 1977's Empire of the Ants. So this is directed by Bert I. Gordon, who we talked about earlier this year with the Cyclops as part of Monster Mayhem. But he also did the likes of Earth vs. the Spider, Attack of the Puppet People, Tormented, and The Food of the Gods, which came out the year before this one. So this is a science fiction horror film, clocking in at 89 minutes long. Stars the likes of Joan Collins, who was also in the likes of Fear in the Night, I Don't Want to Be Born, and Tales from the Crypt, all of those also being released in the 70s. Also stars Robert Lansing, but I've only seen him in one other film before, and that's 4D Man, which is from the 50s, and yeah, wasn't particularly good, unfortunately. You've also got Albert Salmi, who was in The Take, Lawman, and Escape from the Planet of the Apes. And finally, Jacqueline Scott, who was in Charlie Varick, Telephone, and Duel, although only in a voice role in that film where she was on the phone, but she was technically the second lead in that one. But nonetheless, a Florida real estate developer and her captain lure investors to a property in the Everglades called Dreamland Shores, under false pretenses that the swampland will soon be developed. After the group arrives on a small island, they find it has been overrun by giant mutated ants brought on by the dumping of toxic waste in the area. Now, I am a fan of 50 sci-fi horror B movies, as you may well already know, which this is largely similar to the two, but unfortunately it lands on the more underwhelming side of that type of film. That, though, quite frankly, is not a big surprise, given even in the 50s, Bert I. Gordon was far from the best director of such films, with the likes of Beginning of the End being one of my least favourite of those 1950 sci-fi horror films. And even though The Food of the Gods was decent, this is definitely a lesser effort. So, yeah, Food of the Gods is my favourite of his that I've seen from the 70s. That is one of these kind of, giant nature films, monster films, what do you want to call it. That said, this is entertaining in its ineptitude, especially when it comes to the special effects, as even in 1977, the year that had Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind being released, this would have been laughable. And quite frankly, nearly 50 years later, this time hasn't been kind to it whatsoever. So, yeah, some extremely crude methods were done for the special effects in this, going as far as using a series of still images and then just having the ants crawl over them to make it look like they're crawling up a building. Now, that might well have worked in a sort of, a really crude manner, but when you have the ants then subsequently going from the building up onto the sky that is part of these pictures, then yeah, they end up just looking like they're floating in the air, and it doesn't work. And then you've also got the split screen elements as well, which also look really, really janky, and the attempt to enlarge the ants and put them onto the screen. It just doesn't work, and it's something that Bert I. Gordon has been doing ever since the 50s. He was doing it right with the beginning and the end and such and such. So yeah, it's kind of a method of filmmaking he's stuck with for a couple of decades, but it's rarely ever worked. I'd say the only time that it's worked has been with The Food of the Gods and Tormented, in terms of the way that he films, you know, these kind of non-earthly kind of things. Tormented worked because that was pure horror, and therefore the kind of transparency that comes with these kind of effects really worked in that film's favour. But with the likes of this, yeah, it just doesn't look great. And I imagine if you'd have sawn this after in the year of Star Wars and the like, then yeah, it just looks extremely old hat and outdated even back in 1977. That said, it features a decent score, some fun attack scenes, a final act that is effective in setting itself apart from other similar films, and it doesn't fully outstay its welcome. But it's not a film that I can highly recommend. As even though I did enjoy it more than I did on my first viewing a while back, it still ultimately is only going to get 2 out of 5. So yeah, it's nothing. It was surprising to me how low I've rated it, because, like I said, I rated it even lower way back when I first saw it. But I didn't hate it anywhere near as much as I did back then. But ultimately, still not a great film. That said, I really do like the artwork that this has going on, either for the slipcover or on the case itself. The artwork is doing a lot of heavy lifting there for the film itself. I do believe, yeah, both of them are original poster artwork as well. So that is all good, and the film is actually a first-time Blu-ray debut on for the UK. So that itself is also good. Inside the case itself, we have the disc in blue with the yellow writing, and we also have a booklet with this release, and there is Joan Collins herself. think she's 93 now. But yeah, nonetheless, inside the booklet you have your cast and your crew, and then you have Ants on an Elephant, Natural Horror, Killer Bugs, and Empire of the Ants by Liam Hathaway. So yeah, there's one of the ants in the film attacking a boat. That they end up setting on fire because apparently that's better than letting the ants sit on it. You know, the only boat they've got to get out of there. That's a really cool, what I believe is probably a Spanish poster for it. Again, poster doing a lot of heavy lifting. This is back in the day when obviously posters were, you know, painted and such, so they could really just do what they wanted with it in that kind of regard. And then the film itself is presented in the 1:85:1 aspect ratio, so adjust your screen accordingly. And in terms of the film itself, it's in 1080p has a 1080p presentation on the Blu-ray. Yeah, it's in color, 1:85:1 aspect ratio, and yeah, it looks and sounds fairly decent, but the film itself is never great in terms of the way it looks anyway, especially when it comes to the special effects. So there's only so much that a new Blu-ray release can do for it. You got the original English mono audio as well, which sounds fine. You got optional English subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing. Then you got a new introduction to the film by Chris Cook, filmmaker and co-director of Mayhem Film Festival. Then you got the BIG picture interview with film historian Kim Newman, focused on the life and career of cult filmmaker Bert I. Gordon, who was called the BIG, well before Notorious Big, in fact. And then audio commentary by writer, director, and producer Bert I. Gordon. That was obviously before he died. I think he died in 2016 or thereabouts. Then you got audio commentary by film historian David DeVille, with film historian and filmmaker Michael Verratti, and then you got a radio spot and the original theatrical trailer as well. So you might be wondering why the hell I bought this when I already knew I didn't like it, and that's purely because I want to support these kind of films. No, they are not great, but they are entertaining enough, especially in terms of how bad they are, and hopefully it means that, you know, Eureka go out there and look for, you know, other similar films that are better. You know, I would like The Food of the Gods on Blu-ray, quite frankly, because it is a much better film than this one. And then obviously there's a great deal more out there that deserves a release. And obviously Eureka have, you know, released these type of films before with what's the name of it? It's slipping my mind now. The one with the mutant pig bear creature or whatever it was called in the 70s. I'm pretty sure they released that. It's currently slipping my mind, and usually I would have such a film on display straight ahead, but obviously they've also released other like 50 sci-fi as well on Blu-ray, with the Monolith Monsters and Man-Made Monster being from the 40s, and then Monster on the Campus as well from the 50s. So yeah, I just want more of these kind of films to be released on Blu-ray, quite frankly. And we are obviously getting quite a large box set which has several of those kind of films from Umbrella, which is currently on its way from Australia to me. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, but hopefully we get more single disc releases that have these kind of films, to be honest, because yeah, they deserve to be watched, even if they aren't particularly great. And yeah, at the end of the day, you can still have an entertaining time with them, despite how flawed they are. But nonetheless, if you have seen Empire of the Ants before, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. But nonetheless, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.